Hello people, this is Mark from KharisChangeWorks. Guys, hope that you're well. I want to talk about something quite serious. And it's something that I have spoken to people in the past, particularly in a previous job where I was working with drug addicts, alcoholics, and those kind of people, homeless and so on. Really specialized group of people, and it's a group of people who I have a sincere love for because of the circumstances that they're in. And I suppose in many ways, based on my own experiences with being neglected and rejected, obviously on a very different level. I've been very fortunate not to be homeless and addicted to alcohol or drugs or gambling for that matter. So in that sense, I'm quite fortunate. Where these folk, many times it's not their fault for becoming homeless. And it is with that I want to talk about this with you, and I would like to hear your story. And maybe you've experienced this in different arenas of your life. Who knows? I don't know. And it is the idea of hitting rock bottom. Rock bottom. Now, I hear a lot of people talk about being at rock bottom. I can't go any lower. I argue the toss, and I would say, if you are at rock bottom, you've got no further down to go. It would suggest that the only way is up. The only way to go is up. You see, when you are descending towards rock bottom and you reach rock bottom, the only way you can go is back up. A lot of people get confused between being at rock bottom and being virtually at rock bottom or nearly at rock bottom. You see, here's the thing. Let me give you an example of my own life. So there's no BS here at all. When I was still, dare I say, happily married, and I'm not, that's for sure. Certainly not happily married by any means. Haven't been for a long time, but that's a story for another time. There was a lot of people who would tell me things regarding my circumstances in terms of how they perceived my behavior within the marital home. These things we were talked about frequently, not necessarily the nitty-gritty, but the desperation of wanting a happier life. And there were many times I believed that I was at rock bottom, particularly when the narcissistic abuse came and the neglect, emotional neglect, and the intense stress. I believed I was at rock bottom, but there was a time where I thought I can't cope anymore. And yet I did, sort of. And that phase of my life where I was effectively looking back at it, I was still on the descent towards rock bottom. But I was also very blinded, and I was in denial. And the reason why is because I was so married to my religious beliefs, so married to the wedding vows, that I failed to see the reality of what was going on. And to many people, I would kind of say, the wedding vows say, in sickness and in health, and in, the thick and the thin, the good and the bad, those extremes. And I would always choose to acknowledge things aren't good, but I was so bound by my promises that I was effectively disabling myself to say, I'm not going to do anything about it, because these things will eventually pass. I mean, at the end of the day, every thunderstorm's run out of rain, right? Right. When it comes down to narcissistic abuse, there is no end to that rain. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So whilst I was moaning to people like my parents and some one or two very close friends, I was in denial of the reality of where I was in, albeit that I was still descending in my mood, in my confidence, in my beliefs. I would even go as far as to say that, because I was blinded by denial in spite of sinking down. It's true. Now, when I hit rock bottom, when I nearly had a nervous breakdown, when I self-harmed, when I became someone that completely became so inhuman in my own recognition of who I was as a person, only then that I go, crumbs, this isn't good. I need to do something. At that point, this has been going on for 17, 18 years, maybe even longer. But on the descent, so many people are blinded because of a lack of awareness, a lack of recognition. Ears that hear the words but completely miss the message, miss the care, miss the love and concern of those who are nearest and dearest to you. My friend, let me tell you now, this is a true fact. I couldn't care less who you are. If you want to debate this, bring it on. Man, if you are a millimeter, if you metric, or if you 1/1,000,000th of an inch, if you imperial away from rock bottom, my friend, you're not at rock bottom. You see, only when you are at rock bottom, you've got a solid foundation to push yourself up. Where if you are still that fraction short, you're not there yet, really. Now, I spoke to Laura about this yesterday. That line is always there. People know it in their mind. People know it in their heart. People know it, where that line is. But some fail. Some choose to not acknowledge that line. So what am I saying? My friend, this is what I'm saying. The only way to get yourself out of a rock bottom kind of situation is to be there. You see, I would liken it to say that when you're hitting rock bottom, it's like going down a well. And it doesn't matter how deep that well is. It could be a few feet or a couple of meters. It makes no difference. Normally, it's quite dark. Normally, it could feel very cold. It might be damp, uncomfortable. It feels like you've got nowhere to go because a well's round and quite small. And you could take one step and you're against the brick wall, and if you go the other way, against the other brick wall. There's no ways to climb out. At least these are things that are true for me, in my experiences as far as rock bottom goes. And I was deluded to say, man, I'm coping. But you're on a decline. When I hit rock bottom, proper rock bottom, only then did I get the motivation, the reason to say things need to change. Not just for myself, but for everybody around about me. It is as if when you are hitting rock bottom, that your eyes open, your ears open, your heart now seems to be opened. And it is during the descent that I truly believe that while you're on the descent, you are preparing to escape. But you can't because you're in denial. And my life experience talks about, particularly in that job I mentioned earlier, where a lot of people go into drugs, go into alcohol, go into gambling, go into whatever other form of addiction there is. And it is to deal with some kind of pain, some kind of loneliness, this empty, hollow, cold, isolated feeling of you might not feel wanted or feel loved or accepted, or the belonging elements aren't necessarily there. And I suppose in many ways I was quite fortunate that I did have a couple of people who were always there. I mentioned in another video, Laura is one of those. My parents, and maybe one or two other good friends. So what am I saying now? What I'm saying is, choose wisely who your friends are. Because regardless of the descent that you might experience, they will always be there. The true ones. Not the ones who come and go. No. The real friends. And when you hit rock bottom, they will be the ones that will light your fire to say, get out of there. They are the ones that will hold your hand, maybe physically, certainly emotionally, to drag you, if needed, out of that pit. Now, pit reminds me of a little acronym way back when in church, where the minister said PIT stands for pastor in training or person in training. Somehow it strips away the unnecessary things in your life as you descend. I know what I'm talking about. Because let me tell you, when you get out of that pit, when you are now on that descent with the help of some of your really good trusted friends, those congruent ones, when you climb out of that pit, out of that well, when you get back in the sunshine, so to speak, you will notice that you have changed dramatically. Yes, there will be people who will say, "Oh, you've changed. I don't like it anymore." You're not your old self. Correct. You've gone through a metamorphosis. There's been some change. The pit, the well, call it whatever you want, was never there. It was never designed for you to get there, change, and come back out as the same person. That's stupid. You have to evolve into a better version of yourself. And the pit, believe me, is the best way, not necessarily the nicest way, but it's the best way to strip you from all the unnecessaries. And it's when you are free from all that unnecessaries that your eyes open, your ears open, your heart opens, your mind opens. and you realize, man, I need to do something. Only then are you motivated truly to do things. So all these people who do drugs and alcohol and gambling, I only use those three because they are the most common addictions out there. Whilst you're doing that, you are spinning around, not achieving anything other than destroying your life. You've clearly not yet hit rock bottom. That's all I want to say. Value the descent because it's stripping away things from you. When you change as you get out, you will become a better version of yourself. Now the thing is, when you get out, whatever you do, don't do the same old, because you will then experience the same old, the same pit, so to speak. I make reference now to a video where I talk about a half a degree rule, where if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Go check it out. It's a really good video. It's very informative indeed. So now I'm asking you, are you in a pit? Are you at rock bottom? How motivated are you to get yourself out of this circumstance? Fractions is not good enough. It's only when you've got that solid foundation of rock bottomness that you need in order to propel yourself out. That's the only way that you can do it successfully and hopefully avoid the same traps and snares and tricks to get you back in that place. Only when you are rock bottom. So be encouraged, my friend. It's a choice we have to make. It's an awareness that we need to obtain. Now, I've often said that awareness is the key to change. It's the bedrock. It's the spine that we all need to say, man, I'm aware of what's going on. Only then will we go, I need to make a plan to get out of this pit. I'll report back since separating. I'm out of that well. I focus. I've got direction. I've got a vision. I've got a purpose. I've got a goal. I have a reason to be alive. Because beforehand, all these things were squashed and squeezed out of me. It's the truth. I know it's been a bit of a longer video, and I do appreciate if you've managed to stay as long as you have. So all I want to say is, as far as this is concerned, you determine when you are at rock bottom, right at the bottom. And you determine how you apply the lessons that you've learned on the descent. But be aware of the denial. See, a lot of people play in denial because it's fun. You're in the sun, you're in the water, you're splashing around. It's okay, it's fun. You can use denial to manipulate people to feel sorry for you. That's a truth that a lot of people don't want to hear. It still remains the truth. Instead of getting out of denial and realize it's not a good place. Empower yourself. Build your confidence. That is true strength. That's all I want to do. It's a really encouraging video for you today. Serious one. But don't be fooled by denial. Don't be fooled by not quite being at rock bottom. There's always an escape. There's a video called There's Light at the End of the Tunnel. Always, 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 always. Watch the two. It's really important. Please do all the YouTube admin. Share, subscribe. I am convinced that you've got friends and maybe family members who would appreciate this kind of content and this kind of information. Because we all need it at some point. I hope this video has challenged you to think about where you are in the well, should you be in one. That's it, my friend. For now, this is Mark from KharisChangeWorks. I'll speak to you soon.